Thanks for joining in. And now over to Zoom. Hello, dear friends, dear Dharma friends. Quite touching to me to come here and find you here. You can hear okay? I've had wonderful sound technical difficulties this morning, but they seem to have healed. I wish I knew what did it, but I don't. So it's Sunday morning, the 1st of November. I've had 3.5 different Dharma talks go by since 4 o'clock this morning when I got up. I'd land on one and then I'd say, no, that can't be right. That's not right. But I do have a poem. This is a poem that was written 10/30/2020. Written by a friend of a friend. The author's name is Judith Piazza, and I believe she lives in Colorado Springs. What is brave space in these pandemic times? It is the ability to feel loneliness and know we're not alone. It is the ability to feel the anxiety of loved ones, of ourselves. To hear the words, "I've never felt like this before," and to hold this anxiety like a tiny sparrow shaking within our loving hands, while we softly hum songs of hope into the essence of its being. It's being able to cry into open space for my sons in solidarity with all mothers and fathers everywhere, for their sons and daughters. It's the ability to anguish without collapse, to hear the pain of another with compassion and still know where I stand and where you stand. It's being able to pray, clear and strong for all beings, for all businesses, for the world and all its life. Still, it's the decision to see the bright light of day through anger, greed, aggression, and oppression. It's the ability to pray as if our world depended on it, and it does. It's the desire to make a heartful connection, despite all political efforts to divide, separate, and conquer. It's the ability to sing songs of peace, of inspiration, to drum rhythms of freedom and hope in the face of chaos, uncertainty, and fear. To paint, create, write, dance, knit patterns of harmony and wellness, of balance, true, and care, and love, into the very fabric of our existence, into the core of our beingness, into the matrix of our world. This is brave space in these pandemic times. And as guided by Robert Bly, a second reading. Well, now at least you know the lay of the land. Now you can feel what's true in this poem. In honor of Robert. It is the ability to feel loneliness. What is brave space in these pandemic times? It is the ability to feel loneliness and know we're not alone. It's the ability to feel the anxiety of loved ones, of ourselves, to hear the words, I've never felt like this before. And to hold this anxiety like a tiny sparrow, shaking within our loving hands, while we softly hum songs of hope into the essence of its being. It's being able to cry into open space for my sons, in solidarity with all mothers and fathers everywhere, for their sons and daughters. It's the ability to anguish without collapse, to hear the pain of another with compassion, and still know where I stand and where you stand. It's being able to pray clear and strong for all beings, for all businesses, for the world, and all its life. Still, it's the decision to see the bright light of day through anger, greed, aggression, and oppression. It's the ability to pray as if our world depended on it, and it does. It's the desire to make a heartful connection, despite all political efforts to divide, separate, and conquer. It's the ability to sing songs of peace, of inspiration, to drum. KB, the link is working. The link is working. Sorry, folks. I meant to turn all that off and I didn't. It's the decisions to see through the bright light of day, through anger, greed, aggression, and oppression. It's the ability to pray as if our world depended on it, and it does. It's the desire to make a heartful connection. Despite all political efforts to divide, separate, and conquer, it's the ability to sing songs of peace, of inspiration, to drum rhythms of freedom and hope in the face of chaos, uncertainty, and fear, to paint, create, write, dance, knit patterns of harmony and wellness, of balance, love, and care, into the very fabric of our existence, into the core of our beingness, into the matrix of our world. This is brave space in these pandemic times. Let me just turn a couple of things off here. Oh, I see what's happening. Oh, jeez. Ha! Oh boy.
You forgot it was fall ahead or fall back?
No, I just didn't turn off the waiting room.
Oh, we miss you.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Sorry about that.
I'll mute myself now, let you start. It's nice to see your face.
I'm going to just go ahead and have a third reading of that poem. I think it's well worth it. It's beautiful. Judith Piazza, written 10/30/2020 in Colorado Springs, I believe. What is brave space in these pandemic and insane political times, I would add? It is the ability to feel loneliness and know we're not alone. It's the ability to feel the anxiety of loved ones, of ourselves, to hear the words, "I've never felt like this before," and to hold this anxiety like a tiny sparrow shaking within our loving hands, while we softly hum songs of hope into the essence of its being. It's being able to cry into open space for my sons, in solidarity with all mothers and fathers everywhere, for their sons and daughters. It's the ability to anguish without collapse, to hear the pain of another with compassion and still know where I stand and where you stand. It's being able to pray clear and strong for all beings, for all businesses, for the world and all its life. Still, it's the decision to see the bright light of day through anger, greed, aggression, and oppression. It's the ability to pray as if our world depended on it, and it does. It's the desire to make a heartful connection, despite all political efforts to divide, separate, and conquer. It's the ability to sing songs of peace, of inspiration, to drum rhythms of freedom and hope in the face of chaos, uncertainty, and fear. To paint, create, write, dance, knit patterns of harmony and wellness, of balance, love, and care into the very fabric of our existence, into the core of our beingness, into the matrix of our world. This is brave space in these pandemic times. Seems also like a very good and important moment to take refuge. To take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the Sangha. And of course, the rougher times get, the more refuge comes to the fore. We remember, maybe, I thought I could take refuge in family and children, in political stability, in the way things are supposed to be, in the way they've been. And we're facing a time of great instability and change. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. So, let's do very little for a while. Let's stop, take a comfortable upright posture. Let's notice where the body makes contact with the chair. In fact, let's fully incarnate right here. Let's take a big leap and be willing to actually be alive. It's such a risky thing to do. To dare to feel. To notice that each breath has a beginning. It has a rising to fullness. It has a decline. And then it vanishes. This truth of impermanence manifested by the breath is a doorway to freedom. To recognize, even if only for a second, the utterness of impermanence. Sets us free from all kinds of suffering. The breathing happens at the level of tissues and bones. The organism breathes itself. And our practice is of what the Buddha called bare attention. We're not manipulating the breath. We're not trying to breathe in some part of the body. It's not some improved breath. It's just resting here. And as we get calm, sometimes there will be a gap between out-breathing and in-breathing. And then before there's any movement even, you can know something's about to happen. like waiting for the sun or watching the sun come up over the horizon. Something's going to happen, and it's happening now. And then there's the whole journey to fullness. The turning and the journey to emptying. And then, of course, there's thoughts, there's emotions. In my talk today, I'm going to speak about anxiety and fearfulness. These are natural, essential parts of the human mind, as it's come down to us over literally billions of years of evolution. But here we sit right on the cutting edge of consciousness development. And we have the guidance of the Buddha. What to do? Come home to the breath. Relinquish all else. Or if there are thoughts, emotions, acknowledging them, this is here. And now I will return to breathing. The human mind is part of the world. It's part of the universe. A natural manifestation that follows orderly principles. There is an ecology of mind. We are planting seeds and nourishing them of mindfulness, awake, remembering our intention to be here, of concentration, the ability to focus on one thing and for the mind to stay there, of sustained effort, keeping clear in our intention of practice, moment to moment and day to day and week to week. We practice being wide awake in the midst of pleasure and pain and gain and loss and hope and despair and fame and disrepute, sickness, health. And we both abide in and cultivate equanimity. We learn to bear great happiness and joy and great suffering and anguish with balance, with equanimity. In the midst of it all, we learn how to become tranquil. How to bring the mind to a kind of, or allow the mind to come to a kind of quiet. And to reveal that quiet joy which is there beneath all the noise. And so we fully embrace this breath, these thoughts, these emotions. Coming home to now. the stream of our thoughts and actions. If we get caught in them, lead to very familiar and habitual spaces. The currents of our personality interact with body sensations, the news, other persons, and the outcome is predictable. The Buddha suggested strongly that we go against the stream. That we put our feet down and land in the present moment. To land in the body, which is our slowest moving, changing part. And take a stand. Determined to see thoughts as thoughts, emotions as emotions. And recognize that which can be observed is not who you are. And what is it that observes? I take refuge in the Buddha. With this breath right now, with this thought, with this mood. It is a rare and brave being who is willing to stop and sit. Whatever it is that we're running from internally catches up. If there's joy in the sub-basements, we get filled with joy. If there's sadness or fear or loneliness or confusion, we get to meet that. We meet it on hallowed turf, a path that's been walked by millions and millions of people, the path of the Dharma. We have the support of our community of practice right here. Sometimes what we run into seems overwhelming. Sometimes the ego dissolves and we find ourselves just treading water. That's all normal. To be a great explorer means we don't know where the rapids are. We discover capacities we never knew we had. in addition, or perhaps in creating context for breathing awareness, sometimes we might try being aware of the whole body to allow or inspire awakeness to occur in the hands. And of course, we don't find hands, we find clouds of sensations. The same in the feet and the toes, and the shins and calves, and the knees and thighs. In all the life of the pelvis, the organs nestle deep in the pelvic girdle, in the sacrum and the abdomen. And we're not looking for something otherworldly, we are simply honoring this incarnation, including the hands and forearms and upper arms and shoulders, the chest, solar plexus, the neck and the jaw and the mouth, the lips, the tongue, the cheeks, the eyes, the forehead, the scalp, and the ears. And at the center of all this is breathing in and out. And let's not forget, our entire practice is rooted in love and compassion, starting with ourselves. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. And when I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, I intend to hold myself in sweet compassion. Softening into the body, into the life that manifests here as you. And let us bring awareness into the face and the eyes. And in a few moments, I'll ring a gong. Let's let the first gong be a reminder. Wake up. And then the second be the transition from sitting into letting the eyes open and seeing. Please raise your hand if you feel a little saner than when we started. It's amazing, isn't it? Probably saner than if we had checked the news during this time. So I have a couple of announcements, and Gary, I wonder whether you will be willing to speak about your Saturday with Candle. I meant to check. Oh, there you are.
Hi.
Hello, Gary.
You want me to do that now?
Yeah, please.
Hey. Well, great to be here with you all, and it is always a pleasure to be able to practice with each other. And that's the first Saturday of every month we do these day-longs, so we get to really practice with each other. We get to deepen our practice. We get to really dedicate ourselves of turning inward and cultivating the wisdom of ending suffering here and now. So Candle and I will be offering a mixture of vipassana or insight practice along with metta, the loving kindness that Robert so skillfully added at the end of the meditation. This support of compassion and insight to I was trying to think of another way to deepen your practice. This is a retreat day. This is a practice day, and we're just offering various methods of insight and loving friendliness on deepen our practice.
And registration via the website. And thank you. What's that? What's that cool thing behind you with it looks like a music stand with a semaphore.
This is actually a tattoo light. It's got a bending arm, and it's and then can hold an iPad or artwork or something like that.
No kidding. Ha! They make lights in all kinds of wonderful shapes, don't they?
Apparently.
Thanks, Gary. I have another announcement, which is that Candle will be teaching tonight at 6:30, and you can find the link for that. It's twice a month. Candle teaches on Sunday nights, and I suppose my responsibility of bringing forward the notion of generosity, and if you're not already, please think about becoming a donor to PIMC to practice that wonderful, here's my eye drops, I use them, dry eye syndrome. So many things go wrong as the body ages. Anyway, this is mine, my precious. Or, well, I'll share. Do you really need it? You can have it. Totally different ways of being in the world. And yeah. So if you'd like to do that, to participate in PIMC in a supportive financial way, you can go to the website, and there's a couple of ways in. You can find the links, and then I bet you'll feel good about it. It's the way we belong. So I think that's all I want to say in terms of announcements, and I want to see Jimbo. Are you there? Yes, you are. Would you like to take the helm here for a little while and do some movement?
Okay, thank you very much.
I will spotlight you. Boom.
Right.
There you are. Spotlit.
Thank you. I'll see if I can see myself in the camera, or if you can see my full form here. Yeah.
Whoa, top to bottom. How cool is that?
I got a new camera.
It's clear. It's
and
really...
but the only thing is that this is a straight line in my world. The world, it's bent. So,
That's interesting. Fisheye lens.
Fisheye, yep. Okay, so Robert ended the let's begin our standing meditation with opening the eyes to the space around us and the objects around us.
Dear friends on
Noticing
Facebook
how
and
the
YouTube,
eye seems to
if
reach
you'd
out,
like to join
focus
us
on
for the
this,
movement
focus
part,
on that. There's
please
a
go
reaching, there's a
to
grasping to the eye consciousness. Now just close your eyes
oh,
and
yeah,
let your
right, easy.
consciousness
Please
drop
go to
down
robertbeatty.com
into your jaw
and
and just be
scroll
aware of
down
the
till it has
jawbone,
the links to the
and
Zoom
then
session, which is
drop
going on right
down
now.
into the
And
neck.
come on in and join us.
Be aware of
Thanks.
the sensations
I will be back in a few
in the
minutes
neck,
myself.
across the
Gonna do a little
shoulders,
stretching.
across the collarbone, then come into the heart. Just feel the open, loving quality of awareness from the heart. And the gratitude that we can ignite and nourish for having a healthy standing body with balance, to move the center of gravity over to one side, put all the attention to leaning kind of over to one side, back to the other side. and yet the body knows how to readapt. If the center of gravity is not between the two heels, it's okay. There's a way of adapting. You go over to the other side, past the center between the heels, out to the side. There's just this intelligence that we can learn to notice and appreciate. So, opening your eyes again, we'll lift the hands and press out to the side. And just sort of like a sea anemone. I don't know if I said that correctly. A plant in the ocean, just taking in the waves of the ocean and just drifting out and drifting back, breathing out as you stretch and breathing in as you come towards the body. You're not stretching to 100%, just letting the flow move the hands out and move forward and cross the wrists and feel what happened to the shoulder blades. Now open up again and take a couple breaths. Feel the shoulder blades kind of tucked in towards the spine. Now bring the hands forward. And the back feels like this. Very different. And then bring the hands in, breathing in. Breathe out and press out. And feel the responsiveness all across the back, especially the mid-back where the shoulder blades are, up into the shoulders, softening with each breath out, each breath in. The mindful movement creates a soothing rhythm in the general nervous system, but it all starts with the spine and the shoulder blades opening and closing. And at this time, we'll breathe out. And as we breathe in, we'll pull the elbows back. And again, just pause and feel what's happening along the spine. When your elbows are back, it feels like this. Taking a breath in, pushing out to the side, and pausing. We have two fists at the end of the arm. There's a sense of tightness and alertness, engagement, and then relax. Pull the shoulders, the elbows gently back, bring them forward, and pull apart, pull the fists apart. So there's an in-breath as we breathe, as we draw the elbows in. Feels like this. And then the out-breath is this engagement. And then slowly draw in stretch up overhead and just hold that. Feel the sensations along the spine, between the shoulder blades. Shoulders aren't lifted real high, just the arms are gently extended. Shoulders stay soft. And then open your arms all the way out to the side, palms up. You feel the openness in your palms, softness in the shoulders. Then pinch your finger, your index finger and your thumb together on each hand and draw the elbows close together. Feel what's going on in the spine.
You want to come in?
And then open up. Just press the palms out to keep your finger and your thumb together. Keep 3 fingers up and 2 fingers curled together. And in breath. The elbows approach each other. Out breath. The hands separate. And sensation up and down the spine, especially between the shoulder blades.
Come on.
In between the shoulder blades, there's a secret door.
Come on.
Soften that. Massage that. The lungs are able to expand more. Out breath is more complete. Tension flows away, and the body gets this suggestion of calm, easy movement. The calm, easy sensations translate into the emotions
Yes.
and the thinking.
Hi.
If we find ourselves anticipating with anxiety and fear about the so-called future,
Hi.
turn your attention to just moving and relaxing the arms now.
Hi.
And feel the effects of that soft movement in the sensations up and down the spine. You can't breathe without engaging all sorts of little tiny muscles up and down the spine. So just let the breath happen. Bear attention on this breath. And it dissolves many of the anxious thoughts. The movement is soft, gentle, like a breath, like a breeze. Makes a strong suggestion to the emotions and the feelings. And it's not like we're clinging to the in-breath. I want more, I want more, I want this. That's not the thing that happens. What happens is you gently open. And then when you're ready, you release. Gently open. That sets up a pattern in the nervous system. It calms the feelings, calms the emotions, calms the thinking. It's actually like watering the faculty of tranquility. And it all comes from this loving heart center. Loving the softness and the vulnerability of the body. Loving the integration of our sensations and feelings and thinking. We can be mindfully moving and mindfully planting calm and tranquil seeds. And then we sink a little bit and open the arms to the side, all the way up and up, and then down the center, feeling the openness and the receptivity of the whole body, out, up with the palms and open to the sky, and then connecting with the earth, sinking, sinking, sinking. Open to all of experience. Integrating it all. Big circle, big sphere part of our experience. It's all part of one big sphere of awareness. Then bring our hands together in gratitude and loving awareness. Get a chance to practice with a group and develop our metta, loving kindness, and insight. So if you are interested in pursuing this more, on the third Saturday of the month, I'll be here with a Qigong workshop where we'll do this kind of practice for several hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. I'm wearing my advertising shirt. Whoops, how do I get there? It's over here. Just do it. While Jim was guiding the movement, I made a trip in the house to visit the restroom. On the way back, I paused under the 80 or 90-year-old Douglas fir tree right outside my window here. It's about, I don't know, it's a big tree. And I looked up into its branches, which I do with some frequency. In the summer, I have a recliner that I lie back under that tree and look up. And there's I don't know, 100 branches, maybe more. They start about this big. And there's this, it always pulls me into it. It's like, and it was comforting this morning in its normalcy. It's just a big old tree standing there doing what trees do. And I appreciate that stability. I'm experiencing these days approaching the election with, I'm really glad I have the Dharma and have been practicing all these decades, because it's quite possible for me to find a place of ease and spaciousness. And there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, what is going to happen? One dimension I wanted to bring in here, I've got to see if I can find it easily. I've got two poems, actually. One is from Lao Tzu, number 42 in the Wahou Ching. These are teachings either from a person named Lao Tzu, who was alive in China about the time of the Buddha, or a collection of wise elders. They don't know whether it was a person or whether this is just a compilation. But whatever the case, nothing in the realm of thoughts or ideologies is absolute. Lean on one for long and it collapses. Because of this, there's nothing more futile and frustrating than relying on the mind. To arrive at the unshakable, you must befriend the Tao, I would say the Dharma. To do this, quiet your thinking, stop analyzing, dividing, making distinctions between one thing and another. Simply see that you are at the center of the universe and accept all things and beings as part of your infinite body. When you perceive that an act done to another is done to yourself, you have understood the great truth. It's those last two lines that I wanted to come to. When you perceive that an act done to yourself, when you perceive that an act done to another is done to yourself, you have understood the great truth. It reminds me of the golden rule, Jesus, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think if Jesus was awake as I thought he was, as I think he might have been, it wasn't a metaphor. Do unto others because you know they're you. And then there's another poem, which is it's again from Lao Tzu, and it's about armaments, which is a little, I hate to mention because I'm a little afraid of that in our time right now. But the point is in the last few lines. Arms are instruments of ill omen. When one is compelled to use them, it is best to do so without relish. There is no glory in victory, and to glorify it despite this is to exult in the killing of people. And when people are killed, one should weep over them with sorrow. When victorious in war, one should observe the rites of mourning. One should be sorrowful. I really hope that the election goes in a particular direction. If it doesn't, it's going to be very bad, I think. Very bad. And if it does go in the direction, and we have a Biden-Kamala presidency and vice presidency, there's going to be half of the people in the country, or close to half of the people, who will be feeling hurt, angry, betrayed. And I've spent a little while watching the Fox News and a couple of other sources. And if that was what I watched, I would be on the other side. Because the reality that's painted is utterly different. And isn't that interesting? I find it fascinating. I hear the arguments, and I can see I can see in myself questions arising. Well, maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. Maybe that's true. And so one of the points I wanted to come to is first off is, what do we do with the anxiety? What do we do with our own fear? What do we do with our own anger? What do we do with our own emergence of the five hindrances in spades, perhaps? And the other is, How do we maintain compassion for everybody involved? Because what if it's really true? I remember Ram Dass saying one time, I had a video. If any of you have it, I'd love to have it back. I loaned it out years ago and it disappeared. But it was of an interview with Ram Dass and Daniel Ellsberg. Daniel Ellsberg of the Pentagon Papers. And Daniel Ellsberg was at that point in his life still a very angry person. And Ram Dass kept saying, pointing that out. And they were talking about nuclear war and so on. And it was the first of 3 sessions. There were supposed to be 3 one-hour interviews. And at about 35 minutes, Ram Dass said, well, Daniel, there's another perspective. That what if all the weapons got set off and we all died in one great big flash? Maybe that would be okay too. Ellsberg got up and left. So one of the perspectives that I think is really important that this is what I'm doing for myself. I remind myself I'm going to die. My children are going to die. We're all going to die. We're all here for a little while. How shall I live? Do I want to cultivate a mind of opposition and fear and aggression? Or do I really want to work toward loving everybody? Now, I have my ideology and I have things I want to go my way, and I really hope that this gets pulled out of the fire, because if it doesn't, there would be very bad things happen. But in the meantime, since I have no control over it, I did vote. I checked to see that my vote got registered. But since I have no control over it, what am I going to do with this mind and heart in the meantime? I know people who are flipped out, who are feverishly watching the news, who are, and I know some people who are active on call banks and they're calling into states that perhaps can use some calls. That makes sense to me. But this kind of spiraled up, and what if, and what if, and what if, and what if, I don't think it serves any purpose. And the Buddha gave us some very distinct guidance. When the 5 hindrances come into being, the guidance is restrain them. Don't jump onto them like a wild horse and go riding off down the road, but instead, when lust comes up, when desire, when wanting comes up, notice it for what it is. It's a wanting. It's a leaning into wanting something. It's greed. When aversion arises, aversion all the way to hatred, notice it as aversion. Notice how it feels in the body. Is that something that we want to cultivate? Or is that something we might like to notice as an object and rein in? When restlessness, agitation, and worry arise, do I want to accept that, believe that is my personality, and think that I'm going to help the world and myself by indulging in that worry? Or do I want to notice restlessness, agitation, and worry as objects of mind, which are objects rather than who I am? With sloth and torpor, dullness, do I want to identify with that and become a person who is sloth and torpor and dullness? Or do I want to work with it and remember waking up from it time and again? And then doubt. Doubt. Do these teachings work? It's the bird of Buddha, right? Does it really make sense to be using this as an opportunity to work on myself? I got interrupted internally just then. I know a couple of people, devoted meditators, who have bought guns in the recent weeks. This is America, after all. And what does that mean? What's the level of fear at which we're living if we're going to do that? What's the level of doubt? So what to do? Here's my iPad. I highlighted a couple of things in Bhante Gunaratana's book, which I'm teaching an 8-week class in. Let's say fear, anxiety. Yeah. Are you anxious? Are you having trouble sleeping? Are you frightened? Do you have stories about what you'll do if this happens or that happens? Or what can we do about that? Well, one thing is to sit. And it takes bravery. It's in a certain way easier, but not functional, to keep going, drink a little more coffee, get a little more anxious, do something, keep avoiding, read something. But it takes a lot of bravery to stop and sit and turn in. And let's say we discover that there is fear. Restlessness, the mind jumping from one object to another, and there's fear. One option is to become very diligent about coming home to the sensations of breathing. And it's a practice of suppression. Right? These thoughts, these memories, these fears, they're agitating, and it's not helping me. It's not motivating me to being a wiser, more loving, compassionate person. So in this instance, for the next half hour or 45 minutes or hour or 5 minutes, whenever that thought of anxiety that associates itself with the anxiety comes up, I'm going to take it and remember the old record players where you lift the needle? I'm going to lift the needle and I'm going to put it on a different track, which is concentration on the breath. And the more weeks, months, years, decades we've done mindfulness of breathing, I'm sure the synapses develop. And the more possible it is to actually shut down the unhelpful worry. Thank you very much. I'm going to change the channel. Now, that isn't the final answer to it, because at some point we have to engage with and metabolize those old fears, and then to ultimately have deep insight into the nature of the person, which I'll come to in a couple of minutes. So the list from Bhante Gunaratana, what to do with such a mind. Ignore it, divert the mind to something else, replace the hindrance with its opposite. Restlessness and agitation is replaced by concentration. When the mind is really concentrated, it's not restless. And so using the breath, adding a mantra to the breath, may I be happy, may all beings be happy, getting some beads, doing a bead with each breath, counting out loud, counting up to 10, and then starting over. Or do walking meditation, or do running meditation. Of course, alternately. With anxiety, a few minutes of cardiovascular exercise will often just cut my anxiety out. It uses up the adrenaline, which is part of the anxiety. Reflect on the fact that every hindrance arises from a great number of causes and conditions and is in flux. The traditional Buddhist view is that what occurs in this moment arises from an infinite background of actions of our own in countless previous lives. And I don't know what to make of that. What I do know is that the vipaka, the karma vipaka, the resultant from action of this moment is so hugely complex. I can't in any way figure out where it came from. And so to soften, to breathe, to turn toward the anxiety, for instance, the fear, the anger, and just open, surrender into it. Not surrender into it as becoming it, but just let it wash over and through us. And discover that what it really is emotions and thoughts. It's not the reality itself. There's one more. Oh, gone. Oh, this is colorful. Back in my study of the Buddhist teachings, this next piece was added, they say, several hundred years after the Buddha. With clenched teeth, pressing the tongue against the upper palate, apply all your energy to overcome it. I must say, I've not found that one helpful, actually, but it's colorful. With clenched teeth, pressing the tongue against the upper palate, apply all your energy to overcome it. So, those are traditional ways to work with such a thing. There's another dimension I want to come to. Robert Beatty, little Bobby Beatty from Lachine, Quebec, a suburb of Montreal. That was a long time ago. But Robert Beatty, the personality, is very concerned about what's happening. He believes that the election is a big deal. It is dwarfed by global warming. it's a it's a dangerous. We're in a dangerous time. There's this pandemic, which is, it would appear, going completely. Here's the fear. Here's the fear. It's going completely out of control. Our hospitals are going to get overwhelmed. I'm not particularly concerned for my own health for reasons I don't know, but so when I tune in at this level, the personality level, I am afraid of things like the end of democracy, like the subjugation of women, like profound collusion with Putin. And some of that's true, isn't it? If I live in that, I can hardly go on. So what's an option? The option that I go to is I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Even saying those words is calming to me. I'm sitting for at least an hour or two a day. I'm just reminded right now of there was a very beautiful man I heard give a talk at one of the teachers' conferences on the East Coast. He said that he was this is quite a long time ago, he was a pediatric oncologist. And he said that he had a very busy schedule, difficult hours and so on. But he said, I sit 2 hours every morning. If I don't, I can't survive given the pain that I cause those children. So I think this is the time really for dedicating ourselves to practice. It's one thing to do 5 or 10 minutes and get a little insight, and 20 minutes or half an hour and get a little psychological stability. But what about it? Maybe this is a time for really taking what the Buddha taught seriously and putting it at the very center of our lives. I intend to be a Shambhala warrior. If that doesn't make sense to you, I encourage you to go on to YouTube and look up Joanna Macy, Shambhala Prophecy. Shambhala. That's an amazing video about the fact that we're not here by accident, and there's something for us to do. This system was created by humans, and we as humans can uncreate it. So what do we discover if we really meditate deeply? Utter, radical, comforting anicca. Everything which has a beginning has an ending. Everything that we know is going to come to an end. I'm in communication with a couple of people who are dying, and they're not particularly concerned with the election. It's there, but they have other fish to fry right now. They're saying goodbye to their families. or they're saying goodbye to their loved one. Anicca. Our parents, our children, our friends are all going to disappear. And this is the big frame that I find so helpful. It's like, and so anyway, anicca, that truth, to the degree that we really have deep intuitive understanding of that, then our moods, our thoughts, our feelings, our fears, our political leanings, they all get put in quite a different perspective. It's like, oh, right. Here's a kind of maybe an odd perspective on that, but true. Empires come and go. Britain was the center of the world for 200 years. There's a book. There's 2 copies of this book in the PIMC library, which are called. It's called The Lady of the Lotus. It's the story of Yashodhara. It's the story of the Buddha's quest and awakening from the perspective of his wife. It's quite readable. Great book, and in the traditional story, there are the heavenly messengers who come. They're sent from the Hindu gods, and it's a sick person, a corpse. A sick person, a very old person, and a corpse. In the book, it's slightly different. It's that Yashodhara and Siddhartha are out having a picnic. And he, on his walking around, comes across the foundation of an old castle, a really big old castle. And he realizes, whoa, this was someone's castle. And it's gone. Mine's going to be gone too. And it plummeted him into a depression because he started realizing, wait a minute, my family, and then there was the reflections, my family, my wife, my child. So anyway, anicca. Then there's the second profound insight that we begin small with, but it's what brings most people to practice to begin with, is that there's so much dukkha in life. We keep trying to have fun and look like life is like the ads, but it's not, is it? Maybe for moments, but there's a lot of it's just like this. And the mind wants it to be different. It wants it either more pleasure or less pain. And it refreshes that in all kinds of different ways. And so the more we realize that, and the more we open to that, the freer we become, because we start experiencing relief from it, the nirvana, because we stop demanding things to be different, medically and so on. And I can drive myself nuts if I attach to those demands. And finally, the third characteristic of existence, anatta, not soul, not enduring self. So what if our meditation went deep enough that even for a moment we could see that we are truly not separate from Joe Biden or Donald Trump? What if that teaching is true? This is what I believe, how I believe a fully awakened being sees it, experiences it, which is I'll do what I can to reduce suffering. And I can totally accept the way things are because they're all vaporous. It's all in complete flux. And a moment of that changes us forever. And I invite you to not so much look forward to, oh, I'm going to meditate and have that experience. We all know it. We all know it in our deepest core because it's true. And so to take our meditation really into observing, for instance, observing how the fears come up, observing how the impulse to act comes up, observing how longing for things to be different comes up, and watch them all coming up and coming up and coming up and disappearing, coming up and disappearing. And is there someone doing that, or is it just the mind unfolding? And I know this can sound kind of nutty. So that said, here we are on the ride, the educational institution called a human life. And we're going to have quite an interesting time in the next few days. Tuesday morning, election day morning, we're having a dance meditation, dance party at 6:30. I did it last week for the first time and it was quite successful. I will play a variety of different musical genres and invite us to stop and stand and be awake and then see what the next piece sounds like. And if you have a way to attach better speakers to your computer, I encourage you to do that because it can sound pretty tinny coming out of the computer. And we're going to rock on for half an hour. So, dear friends, that is my attempt to remind us of the bigger picture with the Dharma. And hopefully to fuel us to get through this. There's Frank. You just appeared. Hello, Frank. To get through this next few days, and I hope to celebrate, but to celebrate with great love and compassion. There will be so many people terrified either way this goes. And I don't think gloating is going to help anybody. Maybe a sigh of relief. But the conversation, what we're missing is the conversation across the divide, where we discover that we're all just people. So, I invite any input from you folks.
This talk reminded me of reading about Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Vietnamese monk in the United States, talking about Vietnam and getting confronted by someone and how he was trying to keep his practice and trying to stay calm during this, and it was very difficult for him. And I think about that level of, helplessness when you think about Vietnam versus the United States and the need to have people understand what is actually happening and the complete difference in power, and how we feel with what's going on today, even though demographics are certainly going against, this kind of thing continuing. And, 8 states have gone trifecta in 2018. The House of Representatives has gone.
the legal system has stopped many of the things that were attempted. There is so much more hope in what we face, even if it, for some reason it loses, we still have so much more hope than Thich Nhat Hanh had coming here to the United States and speaking out and using, and how important it was for his practice to be, as part of his ability to demonstrate what he needed to get across.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Robert. Hi, Sandra.
Would you
Can you hear me?
wave? Where are you? Oh, there you are. Hi, Denise.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hear you fine.
This has been just such a weird week. I'm usually pretty tough. I can handle whatever's thrown my way. I can handle stress. I can make a plan. And kind of for the first time, it's like I really feel like, whoa, where'd the rug go? It's gone. And way more tempted to bad coping mechanisms than normal. And the last couple of days, I've just really tried to remind myself that these feelings are like waves. So it's like I'll have this wave of compassion. I'll have a wave of terror. I'll have a wave of, I'm going to make a meal for a friend and deliver it. And remembering that they're all just waves. They're just going to crash over, and then there's another wave coming. That whatever I'm feeling, good, bad, or indifferent, it's not for the rest of my life. It's just that wave that happens to be crashing right now. And that's helped me get out of my funk a little bit.
I can see a little bit of sadness. You remind me of me. That sadness is just kind of, it sneaks out on me all the time. Not all the time, but that's a wonderful strategy, isn't it? To keep that big picture in mind, and yeah. And the waviness of things, the impermanent nature of emotions and life situations. Yeah.
Hi, Robert. Hi, Sandra. It's Jessica.
Hi, Jessica. There you are. Hi.
I just wanted to check in because I had a Zoom call yesterday with some friends I haven't seen since the start of the pandemic. So it was lovely to reconnect. But it was interesting because there's one friend who really struck me as just so deeply suffering. And her situation is challenging. She's my age, and she and her husband still have both sets of parents alive and even one grandma at 107.
Whoa.
Right? And she just kept emphasizing how concerned and worried she's been because of the isolation. That was kind of the running theme, just the isolation and the pain, which is so real and so understandable. But what was interesting is that there's another member of the group who also has elderly family, parents, but those that are in their 90s. And she clearly is staying strong. She's in the moment. She's just much more positive. And it just, I'm going to take the friend that's suffering and I'm adding her to my meta practice, and I'm really trying to convey love and hope her way. But I just was kind of left hanging thinking, how might I, is there something else I can do? Because I don't, she's not in my regular circle. She's a little far away. and she's suffering so mightily. And it stopped me cold in my shoes. It's been the first time in a while that I've really come across someone who I just was caught completely and felt nothing but just the deepest sadness for him. So I thought I'd check in and see if there was anything you might add. Thank you.
I talked with Candle, and she's talking about equanimity tonight. Her teaching is on equanimity, and so that would be to set yourself free of the suffering. If there's nothing you can do, to recognize this is the nature of the world. She has her conditioned way of viewing the world, and she's suffering a lot. And when her parents get sick, she's going to suffer even more. Of course. And I did I did have an embarrassing thought that I will share, which is you should send her my book. It's a great introduction. Ooh, I'm blushing. We're going to go to a commercial break now where I will show you the front cover. Wait a minute, where is it? Oh, it's too out of reach. Oh no, here it is. If you have there it is. If you have a friend who would benefit, there's the book. Oh dear, I am blushing. I don't know if you can see it. Whew. It's funny. Oh yeah, it is so. I mean, I see it all the time. I mean, well, I see it in myself. The suffering that I do in neurotic moments, it's if I were more awake, it would be it's so unnecessary. But there I get caught in it, and then. But that's at least it points out the direction. Thanks, Jessica.
Good morning, Robert. It's Allison.
Allison.
Can you see me?
I think I saw you outside. Are you outside?
I am. I'm kind of trying to follow the sun, but I'm a little bundled up. I'm in Joseph.
Uh-huh.
And
wait, I have to interrupt you. That's a fine looking hat, partner.
Thank you.
I think that's a Pendleton hat.
Yeah. It's nice and it's felt warm. Yeah, I love it here. It raised my kids here, and there's a lot of memories. And what I'm doing, first of all, I wanted to tell you that I have been reading your book and giving other copies to friends, and it's just meant so much to me. And it doesn't matter even what I pick up. Lately, I've been really concentrating on what you talked about today. One of the things you talked about, and that's the hindrances. Because after a while, and you know something, and you just kind of become deaf to it in a way. I do, and so reigniting that spark has been really important. But one of my missions for coming here, one of them is to get away from Portland and be in the midst of nature and enjoy that. But the other thing is all three of my kids have moved here two of them from Portland and recently. And I'm getting my ducks in order and doing our first of many gatherings, a business meeting with my kids about the event of my death. Uh-huh. And they know that's what they're coming pretty soon. In fact, I'm going to have to leave a little early. But we're just going to bundle up and sit outside and talk. I've been real careful about COVID. They're not at all here. There's one case, but I wish they were more careful. But it feels so good to say this is because they'll inherited this house that I have and some property and that sort of stuff. And they've asked me because it was such a horrible experience with my folks. So being able to I guess what I want to say is tell them with lots of equanimity and love and no judgment, and be an example. I think I don't want to talk about it, but I want to say, talk about loving each other and listening to each other and respecting each other, all of us as a family, and ask me questions. Let's talk about it. I don't want secrets. And then I'll feel like, okay, I can die. And that is a really good feeling. I don't have plans to die real soon at all. I want to live longer. But it's the Dharma has helped me so much deal with my own death and really being able to put my children at ease. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Allison. It just struck me, with all the strife there was with your parents' death, if you could short circuit that in your generation, wouldn't that's quite an achievement.
That's what I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it won't be as complicated, so that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I could do a plea for all of your heirs that and descendants and people who are responsible for you, if you be sure to do what do they call it, end of life directive, a living will or whatever you want to call it. Be sure that you have that and that your young the children or people who would take care of you know about it, because otherwise they will do every single possible thing to keep you alive, and it's horrible. And a will, make a will. You can get a will online and do it, because even if you're young, it happens. And it's a great practice. Hey, Frank, how does this madness in America look to you from Germany?
Well, I see it with compassion, and we in Germany, we take great part in what is happening in your country. I mean, it's on every day in the radio, in the televisions, in all the magazines, and we have like big articles about what if Trump has a second 4 years, then what happens, and then what if Biden comes in, then what will change. So we are looking at both sides and trying to prepare ourselves for whatever move you people of the United States of America will take on next Tuesday. And if Germans could vote, they would vote 69% against your current president in favor of Biden. So our country clearly would like to see a change in America.
Hmm.
And last week I was teaching with my wife a 5-day Vipassana retreat, and we were also teaching the 3
Characteristics?
yeah, exactly, thank you. Same theme. So it was nice to hear you explain those. I find them very important and also very helpful to deal with everything, difficult or traditions, both alike. Yeah, and Germany is going into another 4-week lockdown phase now. And that means that I cannot work. I had to cancel our seminars in November, and I cannot practice my massage sessions. So I have all of a sudden a lot of free time for the next 4 weeks. And so I will get up early on Wednesday and see what happened in your country on Tuesday.
You can do a retreat.
Yeah, right.
I should tell everybody I'm teaching a retreat at Hollyhock. There's nothing on the website yet, but if you went to Hollyhock, you could get it. It's the 5th and 6th of December. It's a non-resident. You stay at home. And I will get the advertising up soon.
Good idea.
I'll send you the link, Frank.
Thank you. So,
my dear German brother of this lifetime, brothers of the same mother. Well, anything else anybody would like to share, please?
Hi, Robert. It's Kat.
Oh, hello, Kat.
Hi, Robert. Hi, Sangha. Thank you so much for that talk. That was really, really helpful. And I'm reflecting back 4 years ago to the last election day. And my mother always, since I can, as long as I can remember, has been, I'm going to use the word spouting because that's what it feels like, has been spouting the sentiment, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, which I always found incredibly annoying and did not understand at all. I was like, just let me suffer. I'm an Aries who was an undergrad theater major. Like, suffering is kind of my jam. And reflecting back to where I was at the last election day, checking the polls probably every 20 minutes, like checking to see if a new poll had come out, freaking out. And at this point, I was a straight passing wife in a very, very fancy area of Portland. Like, there was nothing about me that would have drawn any particular mire of this presidency at that point. I am still incredibly privileged, but at that point I had literally every possible privilege that I could have that would have kept me safe during this presidency. And I was completely suffering all the time with just the misery of constant what if, just what you're talking about. And the 2 days before the election, and I'm sitting here wondering why I wasn't drinking, and I'm remembering, because I was 7 months pregnant, but that's the only reason I wasn't drinking daily. And now, fast forward 4 years, I'm a very out queer person who has a partner. My house is could be very easily considered a target. It is covered with queer signage and all sorts of things. I now have 2 young children, which feels like all of these things that make me feel much more potentially threatened in this time. And yet I am sober and practicing daily, and I'm not suffering. I am in pain. I feel a lot of pain for the suffering that I see around me all the time, and so much sadness and heartache for our country and everything happening. But there's a really big difference between that and taking on that suffering personally. And I have found a way of letting go of that suffering personally. I can only speak for myself, but through this Sangha, and simultaneously through sobriety, I found them 2 days apart. And that has been a complete and total miracle to be going through this process, very aware, taking the same actions. The second I got my ballot, I went and voted. I wrote postcards and did all sorts of things to take action, but not sitting in the suffering. And that is a real, real miracle. So I guess I will end by, I think it's a Pema Chodron quote, but I can only attribute it to my mother, of saying, it is true. I found it out to be true that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, don't forget to join us for the dance party Tuesday morning. Mindful dancing. Cricket, it's your kind of thing. So I want to go out today in a different fashion than we usually do. I want to play a song. And many of you will recognize it. It's been around me for several years. It's by the Avett Brothers, No Hard Feelings. And the last 4 lines are how it came to me this morning. The last 4 lines say 4 different times, I have no enemies, which is kind of a benediction for our next few days. A debate about Facebook. Dear Facebook friends, I'm going to say goodbye to you now, because they will flag this as copyright infringement and then make it harder to see the video. So the Avett Brothers, I Have No Enemies, on their True Sadness album. Goodbye for now.